Next step is to assemble the reverse 5th gear shift rod, the reverse shift fork, and then this lug that kind of ties the rod to the actuator for the reverse. First step is to slide the rod through the back of the case. Make sure that the hole on the end is to the outside. I'm just going to put a little bit of oil on this thing as I slide it on through. So that goes in the hole in the back of the case here. Okay. Then the shift fork, same thing. I'm just going to put a little bit of oil on here just so it's not totally dry. So the shift fork goes onto that ring, and then if I get my fingers out of here, this here rod, it goes into this like slot here. Okay. And I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in there so it's not totally dry. Then slide the shift rod through the fork. There we go. And then the lug is right here, goes into this big hole. There's a like a groove on it here, and that's for the wrist pin that we'll put in. So it goes into the hole, drop it in there, and then it goes in to this slot right here. Then pound in the wrist pin to hold it all together. Next is to put the main shaft in, and I assembled this earlier, but on the front here there's a synchro ring and some washers and a thrust bearing. So how this goes in, there's 2 washers here. There's a small and a large. They're not very big difference. You can see the difference in diameter, and the inside diameter is a little different too. The small goes on here first, so I'm just going to put some of this assembly lube on here just to kind of make this thing stick on there. So it goes on here like that. Okay. Then the thrust bearing goes on next. So again, I'm going to just put some of this grease on here, just more as a glue. So it goes on. Okay. Then this is the again, this is one of those new synchros with the fiber inside. So then the other, oops, let me get this back on here. There we go. So then the other thrust washer goes inside here. And so I'm going to just put a little bit of grease in here again to hold that thrust washer. Okay, and then this whole thing goes on a cluster here like that. Okay, so now we can put the whole shaft in. This is the back of the case, here's the front. So you assemble it in through the back first, like this. And then drop it down. So this front cluster thing is going to want to keep dropping off. Just kind of let it hang there for now. Okay. So you get the gears kind of lined up. There we go. Okay. So now I want to put the rear race in, kind of get this thing centered. So I got it started. Kind of drive it in evenly. I'm trying to hold that front cluster on. Next is to put the input shaft in, which is here, and needle bearings are already in there because I pre-assembled it to do the fit, to do the pre-fit of the main shaft. And when you're putting this thing in, that front cluster synchro thing here, that's going to keep falling off. I actually took it out, and then you can just slide it back in past the end of the shaft, and get it on there after you do all the monkeying around with getting the shaft in and the bearing race in on the end. So the input shaft will basically slide onto here. That's where the needle bearings ride, and then there's a race that goes on the outside, and then this is the retainer for the bearing. I'm not putting a new seal in this. This was brand new because it came with the hydraulic clutch kit that I put in. So that seal has only got a 2,500, 3,000 miles on it maybe, so it should be fine. The videos I've watched online and in the book, they don't say to put this on, but if you don't, this whole thing is really loose as you try to assemble the rest of the back of the trans. So I'm not going to put sealer on or the shims in it, but I'm just going to put it on there to hold it in. So just make sure that you catch the bearings on the end of that shaft. They're all lined up. Something's holding me up from getting it on. I think I just got to get it lined up. Okay, so I got it in there. It took a little finagling because you have to get the mesh of the gears lined up. Put the bearing race on. Okay, and then I am just going to put the retainer on. Just with a couple of screws, just to retain everything together. And again, no sealer, no shims, just a retainer. All right, main shaft's in. Okay, flip the trans back around. This is the back of the trans. There's the main shaft, and everything's in there. So time to start assembling essentially the 5th gear synchro and bearings and all that stuff. So this is the 5th gear cluster. It rides on this is part of the cluster too. It rides on needle bearings, much like the reverse cluster did. There are 86 needle bearings total. There'll be 2 rows, a row of 43, damn it, then a spacer, and then another 43. So count out your needle bearings, divide them in 2 to make sure you get the right amount of needle bearings on each side. You've seen me do it, so I'm going to go ahead and put this together and put the needle bearings in, and then I'll come back. So I have 1 row of the bearings in there. So now I'll put the spacer in. Okay, so that goes in there like that. And then I'll put some more grease in here, and then put the rest of the bearings in. Alright, got them all in. I don't know if you can see that, if the flashlight helps or not, but there's a row of needle bearings, the spacer, then the row of needle bearings. The 5th gear assembly consists of the gear and all the needle bearings I just put in, which are in there. This shaft thing, a new synchro. This came with the kit, just doesn't have the fiber thing on the inside. Don't really need it for 5th gear. So this essentially goes on here like this. This will go through the middle, and then this thrust washer goes on the back side. So the trick is to get this in here without knocking out all the needle bearings. So I'm going to attempt to do that. I'm going to use this thrust washer, just hold it on the back side to keep from pushing the needle bearings out. And let's see how we do here. Let's see. Inside there, all the needle bearings are in there. This shaft is in here. So yeah, I think we're good. I gotta turn this to where there's like the little notches. There we go. All right. The 5th gear assembly goes on to the end of the counter shaft here. The first thing that needs to go in, there's one of those rotation balls that I took out. That was right there. That's the ball, and this thrust washer, which has a short side and a long side. This is the short side. It's got like a lip on it. That goes towards the bearing. So some more of that assembly lube on here to help that spacer thrust washer and the anti-rotation ball stick in there. So let me get that in there. Okay. And then here's that thrust washer again with the short side or the boss towards the bearing. I'm going to put some grease on the back of this again just to try to hold everything together. And there's a little notch. There's a little notch right there where the anti-rotation ball goes. Gotta get it lined up. There we go. So now here's the fifth gear cluster. Put the shift fork in place, and again, it only goes in one way. You can't turn it around; it won't fit. Okay, so you got to kind of wiggle it because this gear's got to mesh in with this gear. I'm going to kind of pound on this and push in with the gear at the same time. And then I have a new wrist pin from the kit from Liberty Gears. I'll get it started here. It goes in on an angle. Here we go. Fifth gear is assembled.